So you can give me a thumbs up in case you can hear me clearly, and in case you all are ready with your books and maybe one rough copy each. So you can just give me the thumbs up, waiting for it, so that we can start with the session. So are we there or we are not there? So what is everybody waiting for? Never mind. So I'm still waiting for another 2 minutes. We'll wait. And once everybody has joined in, then we can just start. Yes, good morning, everybody. So I hope the sound is clear. Just write clear in case it is clear. And in case you can see me clearly, just write clear for that also. Sure. So I think we can wait for another 2 minutes. And meanwhile, you can just keep your things ready. You can have a glass of water close to you so that you don't have to get up. We might continue with the session for 1 hour or maybe a little bit more. So how strong is your preparation? Comment and let me know. How clear are the concepts? Are you clear with the concepts or no? Give me a thumbs up. So, ready? So we will just start now. Yes, beta, you should know the exercise questions. They all are important from exam point of view. And tomorrow is your maths exam? Is it? You have an exam tomorrow? Oh, so this is just for class 7th, beta. It's not for the board exam. Yeah, I know science exam is on Tuesday. So, okay, we start with the first chapter. You will have to move along with me. So, we will open the books on your chapter aces, bases, and sols. Let's go page by page, chapter by chapter, so that we don't leave anything that may be important. We need to go as per that. So, coming to the first, good afternoon, beta. Good afternoon, everybody. So, just you try and avoid chatting with each other, especially, and also, wasting time in chat unless there is a doubt. Doubts I will clear at the end of the session. I hope it is clear, everybody. Just give me a minute to set the things here and then we start. Just give me a minute, please. Okay. So coming to the first chapter, that is aces, bases, and sols. So the definition of the aces, bases, and sols is very, very important. You should know what are acids, what are bases, what are their basic properties. Like the acid is bitter in, like the acid is sour in taste, and the bases are bitter in taste. As I told you earlier, that remember B for base and B for bitter. You need to remember what are the different color changes which are there when you are testing the acids and the bases with different indicators. That is very, very important. And I feel it has been given in all the classes. There is a table of the reactions of these acids and bases with the different kind of the indicators. Now coming with the first is that coming to the basic properties, we need to understand what are the color changes. That's one. Number two, what is the taste and how is the feel. For example, the bases, they are basically soapy to touch. So in case there is a question which comes, that's particular substance has been given to you and it is soapy to touch, so you should immediately think of it that it is a base. Same way, as far as acid is concerned, it is generally related to the taste, and it is sour in taste, and it has got a burning sensation. And generally, we have heard of cases when acids, they fall on people, it gives a burn. So that we need to remember. Now, coming to the next is, there are certain substances which are indicating whether the substance that is provided to us is an acid or a base. And those indicators, they can be different, they can be natural, and they can also be the artificial or the man-made indicators. You should know the examples of the natural indicators, and you should also know the examples of the man-made indicators or the artificial indicators. So man-made are the artificial, and the natural are those which we are getting from the nature, like we are getting the China rose, we are getting your litmus paper. Litmus paper, we all know that we get it from lichens, and these lichens are basically the ones which are giving us the red and the blue litmus papers. Now, very simple way to remember that the base is giving us what color with what kind of a litmus paper. Just remember B for base. It finally gives us B for blue color. Of what litmus paper? Naturally, if it is giving us blue color, then it will be finally the red litmus paper, which is giving us the blue color with the help of the base. And in the case of the acids, it will be the opposite. Because acid, just remember, it's kind of something which is burning, something which turns, our skin red or something. Just remember that the final color that we are getting is red. So naturally, the red is not going to turn red. It is a blue litmus which is going to turn red. So this is how we need to remember. And then another natural indicator is your turmeric, which we see in our daily lives. That is, for example, when there is turmeric in our, sabzi which we are eating. So what happens when we are trying to wash the plate or even the cloth on which it has fallen? So it turns a reddish in color, right? So that is a color change. So this way you need to remember what different colors we are getting when we are reacting the acids and bases with different kind of the indicators. So abhi tak humne kya samjha ki jo indicators hain, they are basically of two types, that is the natural and the artificial. In case of the natural, we need to understand that we have got the litmus paper, which is the blue litmus paper and the red litmus paper. Then we have got the turmeric and we have got the China rose. So these are the three kinds of the natural, indicators which are helping us to find out whether the substance which is given to us is an acid or whether it is a base. So coming to the next. We will be studying about the artificial indicators, like phenolphthalein is there. So all these are the different kind of the indicators. Now remember, students, that the acids and bases, when they are combining together, they are giving us totally different substance, which is known as the salt and the water. And the salt that we are getting is after the neutralization process of the acid and the base. मतलब जब ये acid और base आपस में मिलते हैं तो इस reaction को हम बोलते हैं neutralization. ये neutral हो जाते हैं. जो acid है वो अपनी acidic properties छोड़ देता है, जो base है वो अपनी basic properties छोड़ देता है. And finally what we are getting is your salt and the water. So this also involves the evolution of heat. Now coming to the next is that this neutralization process is very, very important in our daily life. Now what happens, sometimes we all know that there is, acidity in our stomach. We are getting burps, and we are feeling uneasy. There is a burning sensation in our neck. So what is happening is that this is due to the increased acidity which is there. And why is the acidity increased? Because we all know that there is dilute hydrochloric acid in our system, in our digestive system, in our stomach. So sometimes when the concentration of this acid, it rises up, then what happens? We are getting what is known as acidity. अब बच्चे, अगर हमने neutralization करना है, अगर हमने इस acidity से हमको थोड़ा सा relief चाहिए, so what are we going to have? We are going to have something which is basic in nature. And generally what we have is the antacids. Like, you can have those eno and all you are having, or you can have diagene, and sometimes you're also having the milk of magnesia. Now you should know the formula or the word formula of the milk of magnesia. That is basically the magnesium hydroxide. Just remember, milk of magnesia. Magnesia में आपको magnesia सुनाई दे रहा है, तो magnesium से याद रखो, it is magnesium hydroxide and it has got a neutralizing effect. Now, very important thing is, children, all of you should know a word equation of this reaction, that is a neutralization reaction. In general, that acid plus base gives you salt and water along with the evolution of the heat. So this is very, very important that you need to understand the word equation also, and also you should know one equation with the chemical formulas. This is what is very, very important. Now, coming to the next is, beta, most of the definitions are given in the summary. You need to learn and memorize the summaries. They will help you to attempt those objective type of questions, multiple choice questions, one word answers, definitions, differences. So nearly 20 to 30% of your paper will be covered in case your summary is thorough, which is given at the back of every chapter. Now coming back to the utility or our daily use in case we are carrying out certain neutralization reactions. For example, now there is another use, that is a ant bite. You know, this ant bite, it has got the formic acid. Now what happens when the ant bites you? Then there is a lot of itch wherever it bites, and we start itching like this. So what is happening? We need to counter it, we need to nullify it, or we need to neutralize it. And for that, we are going to rub the baking soda or the sodium hydrogen carbonate. Coming to the next is your soil treatment. That is very, very important. Now, children, whatever you are chatting in the chat box, please stop doing that. Try to pay attention here. Whatever doubts are there, whatever questions you have, queries you have, I will try and clarify them at the end of the session. So let's not waste time, because your questions will go unnoticed as I am trying to explain the various topics. Now, coming to the next is that the soil treatment is very, very important as far as the daily life applications of neutralization is concerned. So we need to understand, in case the acid content of the soil has increased, we need to nullify it, or we need to neutralize it by using a base. And the best example of the base is your calcium oxide and calcium hydroxide. The other name of the calcium oxide is your quicklime, and that of the calcium hydroxide is slaked lime. So in other words, if the soil is basic, now we all know sometimes it can be acidic, sometimes it can be basic, because we are using so many fertilizers and all, then it can even be basic. So in that case, we need to, neutralize it with the help of certain organic acids like manures and all we can add. So this will neutralize the basic nature of the soil, and it will now be comfortable for the farmers to grow the crops, because the soil has been neutralized. It is neither very acidic nor basic. Now, sometimes in the factories, what is happening is that they are producing so many things. There may be wastes which are produced. The waste may be acidic or basic in nature, and according to the nature of the waste, they have to be neutralized using the other thing. That is, for example, if the wastes are acidic, we will neutralize it using some base, and in case they are basic, we will neutralize it using some acid. So these are some of the important applications of neutralization in our daily life. So I think we have covered this chapter. And so the important things are, you should know the acids and the bases. You should know how they are reacting with the different indicators, what kind of indicators are there, natural indicators, artificial indicators, and what are the color changes. That is very, very important. And also the next is the neutralization reaction, the equation for the neutralization reaction, both in words and as chemical formula, and also where the neutralization processes is applied in our daily life. So we finish the first chapter. Coming to the next chapter is your physical and the chemical changes. Now, children, very, very important what we need to understand. Now, very important is the physical and chemical change, their definition. First thing that you need to remember, that is the difference also, is that physical change अब क्या होती है, वो change जिसमें कोई भी new substance नहीं बनता, but it can be permanent, it can be temporary. So don't get confused कि अगर permanent change है तो वो हमेशा chemical change होगी. No, the chemical change will be permanent, yes, but the physical change can be temporary and permanent both. Give me a minute, please. Sorry for this. Now coming to next, we need to understand the definition of the physical and the chemical change. बच्चे physical change वो है जिसमें कोई भी new substance नहीं बनता. So in other words, we can say that physical change, break the word. Change को पहले ले आओ and start the definition. So a change in which no new substance is formed, that is what is known as the physical change. अब it means उसकी जो अकल है, जो उसकी प्रॉपर्टीज है, वो चेंज नहीं हो रही. क्यों? क्योंकि कोई भी न्यू सब्सटेंस नहीं बना. For example, the best example of a physical change will be melting of anything. It can be melting of wax, it can be melting of your ice. So they are saying physical and chemical changes. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to explain better. Just try and understand, and later I will clarify all your doubts. Now, in case of the physical change, how I said that it can be permanent is, for example, beta, you have got a paper, a sheet of paper, ठीक है, आपने उसको fold किया, and then you can open the fold and it will be the same sheet of paper. So that is a temporary change because you are getting back the original paper. How it is permanent changes, for example, I take a paper and then I just cut it. Okay, I'm not getting the original paper. So this physical change is a permanent change. Now coming to the next change, which is a chemical change, is when I say कि उसकी अकल में भी फर्क पड़ रहा है और उसकी शक्ल में भी फर्क पड़ रहा है, दोनों चीजें change हो रही हैं. And when I'm talking about the अकल, I mean I'm relating to the properties of that particular substance. A totally new substance will be formed which has got totally new properties. So the definition of the chemical change, it is a change in which new substances are formed and which have got different properties from the original substance. Just remember children, जब भी आप equation लिखते हो तो उसके शुरू में क्या होता है? उसके शुरू में they are the reactants which are going to react with each other and they are going to give you the final substances which are known as the products. So on the left side of the arrow, you have got the reactants and on the right side, you have got the products. So now this chemical equation you can give as an example which is very, very important and a relevant example is burning. Burning of anything that आप daily life में देखते हो, for example, mama is cooking food, rusting is there, which you are not getting back the original substance. That is what is known as a permanent change or it is known as a chemical change. So the looks also change, the properties also change, the taste also changes. Means जो आपने raw vegetables ली थी उनका टेस्ट अलग है, उनकी शक्ल अलग है, और जब आपने उसको कुक कर लिया तो उसके बाद में क्या हुआ, उसकी शक्ल भी चेंज हो गई, उसकी प्रॉपर्टीज भी चेंज हो गई. सो दिस इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट which you need to understand. Now coming to the next is that what is rusting. When I'm talking about rusting, it is a very, very important example from exam point of view. You should know the word equation, you should know the chemical formula equation of this rusting. And अब ये rusting होता क्या है? You all know, you all have seen pieces of iron, when you put them outside, they are not painted, they are not covered with any kind of layer. तो क्या होता है कि थोड़ी देर के बाद, थोड़े दिनों के बाद उसमें क्या हो रहा है, there is a brown powdery layer which is seen on top of it. For example, gates of the building, उसमें क्या है, when they put the gate which is new and not painted as yet, तो क्या होगा, थोड़े दिन के बाद आप देखोगे उसके ऊपर एक reddish coat आ जाएगा, एक reddish layer आ जाएगी. This is what is known as the rust, and this is totally different from the original iron which we had. So this is a new substance which is formed. How? Because the iron, it reacts with certain substances. What are those substances? Beta, air mein there is water vapor, there is moisture, and air also has oxygen. So this oxygen of the air, these water vapor of the air, they are combining with the iron and they are forming totally a new substance which is known as iron oxide, that is Fe2O3, and they are giving you this permanent change because we are not getting the iron back from the rust. Now, to save this iron from the rust or getting damaged or getting eroded or getting spoiled, we have to do certain things, that is we have to take certain steps. So सबसे पहला step क्या है? The idea is कि we need to just put a layer that is there in between the iron and the atmosphere. तो वो लेयर क्या हो सकती है? वो लेयर ऑयल की लेयर हो सकती है, वो ग्रीस की लेयर हो सकती है, वो पेंट की लेयर हो सकती है, and very commonly used layer is that of zinc. And when we coat iron with the help of zinc layer, it is known as galvanization. बेटे याद रखो, galvanization में z की sound सुनाई दे रही है, so z, galvanization. Galvanization जो है, that is the coating with a layer of zinc on top of the iron. So the process in which we coat iron with a layer of zinc, the process is known as galvanization. So this definition of galvanization is very, very important from exam point of view. This is what you should know. You should know the differences between the physical change, the chemical change. You should know the examples of the physical change and the chemical change. For example, beta, you are evaporating certain substances, then there is condensation. These are also physical changes. Why? Because condensation में क्या है, water vapor से आपको liquid वापस मिल रहा है. Now this liquid which is water, अगर आप इसको freeze कर दो तो क्या होगा, you will get ice. Ice जब melt होगी फिर से आपको water मिलेगा. So all these are the physical changes. But the chemical change will be, for example, like I told you, any new substance which is formed, that's a chemical change. For example, burning of the magnesium ribbon, burning of anything for that matter, burning of wax. All these are the chemical changes in which you do not get the original substance back. Now, another example or a very good example of the physical change is the process of crystallization. Beta crystallization may, if you have studied, this is on the last page of your chapter. If you have studied in case of the crystallization, what is happening is they are taking, the crystals of blue vitriol or the copper sulfate. ये कहाँ से आए? Basically, you are just preparing a saturated solution. आप क्या करते हो? आप कॉपर को डिजोल्व करते रहते हो, कॉपर सल्फेट को डिजोल्व करते रहते हो डिजोल्व आप उसको, एंड धीरे धीरे क्या हो रहा है? You are getting the crystals of the copper sulfate on cooling. So you have to cool the saturated solution of copper sulfate and you will get the crystals of copper sulfate. Just one second, let me see if there is any important question which I can see. That is, can you tell me the importance of all the chapter questions and topic that, can you tell that all those important, okay, question answers, important diagram, welcome, okay. So children, I'll be covering everything. You don't have to worry. But as such, I cannot tell you what are the important topics. You will have to pay attention when I'm explaining. And I'll be explaining all the important topics also. But a word equation is basically, for example, I'm writing acid plus base will give you salt plus water in words. And if I take an example of acid, for example, HCl, right? Plus sodium hydroxide will give you sodium chloride in water. That is what I mean by a chemical equation. And the word equation was the first one which I told you. Now, children, coming back to the process of crystallization, which is on the last process or the last page of your chapter. In this case, we are preparing the copper sulfate crystals. And these copper sulfate crystals, we can get the copper sulfate solution back from them. That's why it is a physical change. Now, this crystallization we also see in our daily activity, for example, or in a day-to-day life. Generally, the salt that you eat are the crystals of salt, and they are being obtained by the process of evaporation of the seawater, finally followed by the crystallization. This is how we are using crystallization in the formation of the salt. So they are the crystals of sodium chloride that we are using in our daily life. Now, coming to another important aspect which you need to understand is that there is a test of carbon dioxide which is given in your books. This is also very important. You should know how we need to test carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide is basically a gas which, when passed through the lime water, it will give you calcium carbonate, which is whitish in color. So the solution becomes white after we pass the carbon dioxide in it, and we are passing the carbon dioxide through a solution which is known as lime water. Lime water, the chemical formula is calcium hydroxide. So this is what I mean by the word equation and the chemical equation. In case it is a word equation, I will write it as words. In spellings, I will write as, carbon dioxide, CARBON, like this. So carbon dioxide plus calcium hydroxide will give you calcium carbonate and water. Now, in case I'm going to write it in chemical formula, it will be, carbon dioxide will be represented as CO2, and then otherwise lime water will be calcium hydroxide, and finally we are getting is calcium carbonate plus water, that is H2O. So now remember another way how we can analyze, how we can come to know whether change, what is happening, is a chemical change or a physical change. Another indication is that there may be a sound which is involved, or we can see certain gases coming out, or we can see, there is an explosion, and we can also see the different kind of color changes which are taking place as a result of the chemical changes. So it is given in your books that is heat or light may be produced, sound may be produced, smell may be there, and certain gases may be evolved. So these all are the indications that the change which is happening or the reaction which is happening is a chemical reaction or a chemical change. So we need to understand all this, and we also need to understand, for example, in this, which I have already told you, the indication, how do we test whether there is carbon dioxide or not. So we just need to give that equation. We need to explain it that the gas which is coming out will be passed through lime water. If the lime water turns milky, then the gas coming out is carbon dioxide, otherwise it is not. Another important example which is given of a chemical reaction or a chemical change in your books is the change in the color of the copper sulfate solution due to the reaction with iron. So they take the copper sulfate solution, they drop a piece of iron or an iron blade in that, and after some time we see that the solution which is blue in color changes into green color, that is of the iron sulfate, and the copper is released in the solution on the plate. So it changes into a different color altogether. So this is what is known as a chemical change. So we have covered this chapter. Just keep noting down your questions. I will clarify all your questions and doubts at the end of the session. Now, coming to the next chapter is your next chapter is it is respiration in organisms. I hope you're ready with that. Yes, it is two types of different reactions are there, beta. In physical changes, as such, there are no reactions. I know the reaction you're talking about, the chemical chain, can be exothermic and endothermic reactions, but we are not getting into that. Yes, the figures basically you should know in the chemical change and all, it is not as such, there are no diagrams in the physical change and the chemical change. It is only when you're testing for the carbon dioxide that you should know that diagram, or maybe the diagram of the crystallization. And in case of your acid, bases, and salts, there were no diagrams in that. It is just in case you want to draw, you can draw when you want to, understand the changes which are happening when you are testing the substances with the China rose. That is all which is given. So that's all. And coming to the next is now your respiration chapter. Beta, in this respiration chapter, you need to understand the definition of the respiration. What exactly is respiration? How is it happening? What are the different kind of respirations that are taking place? All this is very, very important from exam point of view. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that respiration is, okay. Now, coming to the next is, so somebody's writing, I'm cooked. So I think in that case, we can just leave the session and we can relax and rest. So now coming to the next is the respiration. We need to understand better respiration क्या होती है. Respiration is basically the process by which we are taking in oxygen. और ये ऑक्सीजन हम क्यों ले रहे हैं अपने बॉडी के अंदर? Because this oxygen is going to burn the food that we have already taken and digested and absorbed. Now this food which is in an absorbed state, it is with the cells. So this oxygen which goes inside the body will reach the cells. It will burn this food. The process is known as combustion of food, and that results in the release of energy. So this is the basic principle why we need to respire, why we need to take in oxygen, because it is going to burn the food. Now burning here does not mean that somebody is going to light a flame inside your body. Burning here means it is combustion of the food in which the absorbed food is going to get burned, it is going to get oxidized, and we are going to get energy which will help us in the metabolism, that is doing the various activities which we need in our daily life. Now coming to first is the aerobic respiration and the second is the anaerobic respiration. Both these are very, very important from exam point of view. You should know the definitions, you should know the equations. Now coming to the aerobic respiration, beta इसमें आपको word सुनाई दे रहा है air, aerobic. So air means it is the respiration which is involving the intake of oxygen, and that also sufficient supply of oxygen. So this kind of a respiration is known as aerobic respiration. So the definition will be the respiration in which we are having the sufficient supply of oxygen, or the respiration in the presence of oxygen is known as aerobic respiration. तो इसका उल्टा क्या हो जाएगा? Anaerobic, where the word or the letter an gets attached to the word aerobic. It means without air, without oxygen. So this is what is very, very important. We need to understand the anaerobic respiration. Break the word, bring respiration first and start with the definition. So the anaerobic respiration is the respiration in which the organism is breathing or it is respiring in the absence of oxygen. One such very good example you need to know, that is yeast, which is respiring in the absence of oxygen. And the equations are very important for both aerobic and anaerobic. They are super important from exam point of view. So you need to understand that in both the cases, in aerobic and anaerobic, there is a breakdown of the glucose, which is the food in our body. That is the way that the absorbed food is stored in the body in the form of glucose. This glucose breaks down and results in the release of energy, both in the case of the aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. But उसमें थोड़ा difference है. Difference ये है कि जो aerobic respiration है, उसमें there is a complete breakdown of the glucose and it results in the formation of the carbon dioxide, water with the release of energy. But in this case of the anaerobic respiration, there is an incomplete breakdown. बेटे जब डोसा मटेरियल मम्मा रखती है तो उसमें आफ्टर सम टाइम शी कीप्स इट फॉर फर्मेंटिंग, ठीक है, थोड़ी देर के बाद वो स्वेल अप हो जाता है, ठीक है, एंड इट जस्ट बिकम्स big in size, and that is that it ferments. We call that it has fermented. Now students, those who are talking, you will be removed from this class. I would expect you to pay attention in case you actually want to understand certain concepts. Now, coming to the anaerobic respiration, there is breakdown of glucose, yes. There is release of energy, yes. But this breakdown of glucose is incomplete. So this is the difference between the anaerobic and the aerobic respiration. First is that the aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. Second is there is a complete breakdown of glucose in case of the aerobic respiration. There is an incomplete breakdown of glucose in case of the anaerobic respiration. Ethyl alcohol or alcohol is produced in case of the anaerobic respiration, but in case of the aerobic respiration, there is a complete breakdown. So the products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So these two equations are very important from exam point of view. Their definitions are important and their differences are also important. Now, another thing, please learn the equations, write them down, revise them. They will be helpful during the exam. Now, the third kind of respiration is that the oxygen is there, but that oxygen is in insufficient quantity. And the reason for that is that, for example, you are exercising, you are taking in air, but at the same time, because यू नीड मोर एनर्जी, इसलिए जो ऑक्सीजन आप रिस्पायर कर रहे हो, जो ऑक्सीजन आपके अंदर आ रही है, दैट इज़ नॉट इन सफिशिएंट क्वांटिटी. आपको उससे ज़्यादा ऑक्सीजन चाहिए एंड इसके लिए आपका ब्रीदिंग रेट भी फास्ट हो जाता है. सो यू नीड मोर ऑक्सीजन एंड एट दैट पर्टिकुलर मोमेंट, बिकॉज यू आर नॉट ब्रीदिंग दैट फास्ट, what is happening is there is insufficient supply of oxygen in your body, as a result of which lactic acid is produced. So children, remember that lactic acid is also produced during that kind of a respiration. We can say that it is also kind of anaerobic respiration in which there is insufficient supply of oxygen during the exercise. Another kind of anaerobic respiration in which there is no oxygen. So these are two different kinds of the anaerobic respirations, which you can say, one in which there is less oxygen, else say less oxygen, else say the production of the lactic acid. Now coming to the next, so please remember all these three equations. I'm repeating it again. They are important from exam point of view. Now coming to the next is breathing kya hai beta. Just remember one thing, that jo respiration hai, it is made up of two things or two main processes. The first is breathing, second is cellular respiration. अब ब्रीदिंग क्या है? जो हमको बाहर से दिखाई दे रही है कि मैंने सांस अंदर लिया और मैंने सांस बाहर छोड़ा. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज ब्रीदिंग विच आई सी फ्रॉम द सुपरफिशियल लेवल, जो मेरे को बाहर से दिखाई दे रहा है. और अंदर जब मैंने सांस लिया, दैट इज नोन एज द इनहेलेशन और इंस्पिरेशन. इनहेलेशन, इन एंड inhalation or inspiration. और जो बाहर गया, that is known as the exhalation or I am expiring. Now we can just leave that. Just remember inhalation and exhalation as far as your syllabus is concerned. The only thing or the terms that are mentioned in your book are the inhalation and exhalation. Now coming to this, remember children that taking in, that is one inhalation, giving out is one exhalation. अब ये एक inhalation और एक exhalation, ये क्या बना रहे हैं दोनों मिलके? One breath. So one inhalation plus one exhalation is making one breath. अब मैंने एक मिनट में कितने breaths लिए, that is my breathing rate. So that is generally given as your 16 to 18 or 25 times per minute, you can say maximum, which can be much more if you are exercising. That is the time that the breathing rate becomes super fast. Now coming to the next is, remember now what I have discussed is taking in of oxygen is known as inhalation, giving out of carbon dioxide is known as exhalation. One inhalation and exhalation together form what is known as one breath. The number of breaths that we are taking in a minute is what is known as the breathing rate. Now coming to the next is the cellular respiration, which I told you. अब ये जो ऑक्सीजन आपकी बॉडी के अंदर गई, ठीक है, it will go to the different cells. and the gases will be exchanged. The cells, which I will clarify all your doubts at the end of the chapter. Let's not interrupt and deviate now. So that oxygen which is reaching the cells, they already have the absorbed, food in them, and that food is being burnt and releasing the energy. Now, okay, can they ask us the questions about breathing rate when we are at rest or when we are running? Yes, no. They will basically ask you when is the breathing rate faster or when is it slower. So that is the time that you have to say that the breathing rate will be faster when we are exercising. Now, coming to the next is how do we breathe? This mechanism of breathing is very, very important. Children, pay attention. No chat now. You have to understand कि जब हम we are taking the air in, which is rich in oxygen, the process known as inhalation, how does it take place? Now we need to understand कि बेटा जो हमारी chest cavity है, it is covered with the help of the ribs, and at the base there is a diaphragm. Now what is happening is ये chest cavity जो है अभी थोड़ी छोटी है क्योंकि diaphragm जो है it is dome shaped and the ribs are also pressing back and they are inwards. Now when I have to take in air, तो मेरे को रूम की स्पेस जो मेरी चेस्ट कैविटी है उसकी स्पेस मेरे को बड़ी करनी पड़ेगी. तो मैं कैसे बड़ी करूंगी? The ribs, they will move outwards and upwards. The diaphragm will become flat. So okay, just let me know if my voice is clear now or it is not clear. Just give me a thumbs up if it is clear, everybody. I hope you can hear me clearly now. Is it? So if it is cracking, then maybe it could be that there is a less network connection. So I think we'll have to do something. Okay, take 2 minutes. And meanwhile, you can have a sip of water. We connect in 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I'll try and sort this problem. Okay. Some are saying it is understandable. Some is saying that it is cracking. So never mind, maybe I will just connect it in case it is possible with the... Let me just see if I can try and connect it in the other thing. Okay, hopefully it should be better now.